I gave the wrong person a second chance, and they nearly destroyed everything. His name was Lucas Chen, and I should have trusted my instincts the first time he betrayed me. I'm standing in my empty apartment, staring at the space where my furniture used to be. The walls are bare, the closets are empty, even the silverware is gone. My bank account shows a balance of $372. Last month, it had $48,000. My business partnership is dissolved. My reputation is in shambles, and the person responsible? Someone I invited back into my life with open arms, believing they had changed. 3 years ago, I thought I had it all. I'd built my marketing firm from nothing. 10 years of 16-hour days had finally paid off. I had 12 employees, a sleek office in downtown Seattle, and premium clients. The money was good, but the loneliness was crushing. That's when I met Lucas at a networking event. He was magnetic, confident, funny, full of brilliant ideas over whiskey at 2 in the morning. He claimed his old agencies stifled his creativity. Within weeks, we were talking about partnership. Everyone loved him. My employees loved his energy. My clients loved his charm. And I loved, for the first time, not being alone in the trenches. The red flags were there, small things I explained away. He was always short on money. He name-dropped executives he could never quite connect me with. He had an excuse for everything: a messy divorce, bad investments, a partner who screwed him over. I believed it all because I wanted to. 6 months in, I made him a junior partner, 20% equity and access to company accounts. My lawyer advised against it. My accountant begged me to wait. But Lucas had brought in 2 major clients, and I was tired of carrying the weight alone. That's when the first betrayal happened. It started with small discrepancies. Inflated dinner expenses, hotel charges in cities where we had no clients. He always had a reasonable explanation. A client meeting that fell through. A last-minute conference. I chose to trust him. Then one of my longest-standing clients called, confused about an invoice that was 30% too high. I checked our records. The contract had been altered after signing. Lucas had pocketed the difference. I confronted him in my office. The evidence was on the desk between us. He didn't deny it. He just cried. He told me about gambling debts, about threats from people I didn't want to imagine. He was ashamed, he said. He was planning to pay it all back. I gave him until the end of the week to resign. Over the next 2 weeks, 3 more clients called with the same story. Lucas had been running this scheme for months. The total came to nearly $80,000. I spent the next month doing damage control, refunding money, and begging clients to stay. I had to let go of 4 employees. The ones who remained looked at me like I was the idiot who had let the wolf in. They were right. My lawyer forced Lucas out, and I changed every password. I tried to pretend those 6 months never happened. Slowly, painfully, I rebuilt. A year and a half passed. The business recovered. The wound scarred over. I didn't think about Lucas Chen anymore. Then, on a random Thursday, he sent me an email. Subject: I owe you an apology and an explanation. I almost deleted it, but curiosity won. The email was a detailed confession. He acknowledged everything, named each client he had defrauded, and took full responsibility. He said he'd been in gambling addiction treatment for over a year. He had a sponsor. He attended daily meetings. He included his therapist's contact information, encouraging me to verify his story. He wasn't asking for anything. Not a job, not money, not even forgiveness. He said his recovery required him to make amends, and I was at the top of his list. He said I had been a good friend, and he had repaid me with theft. I read it 3 times. It felt different from the crying performance in my office. It felt real. My best friend Lisa told me I was insane to even consider responding. She reminded me of the stress, the lost clients, the employees I had to fire. People like Lucas don't change, she said. They just get better at lying, but I couldn't let it go. 2 weeks later, I wrote back. I kept it short. I appreciated the apology and wished him well. He responded within an hour, asking if we could meet for coffee. No expectations. He'd understand if I said no. I should have said no. But some part of me, the part that missed the friendship before the disaster, said yes. We met at a Starbucks. I barely recognized him. He was thinner, tired, but his eyes were clear. We talked for 2 hours. He told me everything. The gambling had started years ago. By the time he joined my company, he was already in deep to bookies. The invoice fraud was a desperate attempt to keep them from hurting his family. He said he'd hit rock bottom 6 months after I fired him. His wife left, taking their daughter. He was living in his car when a cousin found him and drove him to a 60-day treatment center. He'd been in a sober living house ever since, working as a night clerk at a hotel. He showed me his sponsor's number and a letter from his therapist. He didn't ask for a thing. He just wanted me to know he was sorry and he was trying. When we parted, I felt something I hadn't expected. Hope. Over the next month, we texted occasionally. Updates on his meetings, his daughter's visits. It felt good to have that friendship back, even in a limited form. Then, he asked if I would be a reference for a job application. A small marketing firm was willing to hire him, but they needed someone to vouch for his skills. I hesitated, but I thought about how hard he was working. I made the call. I told them he was talented but had made mistakes, and that I believed he deserved an opportunity. They hired him. 3 months later, he called to thank me over dinner. He'd been promoted. He was signing a lease on a real apartment. His life was coming together. I felt proud, genuinely proud that I had helped someone turn their life around. That's when he made his pitch. His new company was small. They had clients but lacked infrastructure. I had infrastructure but was always looking for new revenue. What if, he suggested, our two companies partnered on certain projects? His firm handles creative, mine handles execution. We split the profits. Lisa was furious. She reminded me again of the $80,000. But I had seen the change. And this wasn't a partnership. It was a simple collaboration. My lawyer drew up an airtight contract. Full transparency. Separate accounts. Immediate termination rights. Lucas signed without complaint, saying he had earned my distrust and was grateful I was willing to work with him at all. The first project, a small rebranding, went smoothly. We split a $40,000 profit. The second project was a monster. A tech startup needed a complete overhaul. A $300,000 6-month contract. Lucas brought them in. My team would do the heavy lifting. A 70-30 split in my favor. I should have been suspicious about how easily he was landing these clients, but I was too excited about the revenue, about proving my faith in him was justified. 3 months in, Lucas came to me with a problem. Cash flow. The client was paying in milestones, and the next payment wasn't due for 3 weeks. But he had payroll to meet. He was short $25,000. Could I front him his share of the next payment early? He'd pay me back the moment the client paid, plus 5%. Every alarm bell in my head went off. But he showed me everything. The client contract, the payment schedule, his firm's books. The numbers checked out. It looked like a simple timing problem. Against my better judgment, I transferred the money. 3 weeks passed. Then 4. Lucas had excuses. The client delayed. There was a dispute. The check was in the mail. The wire was processing. I contacted the client directly. The first crack appeared. The client had already paid the milestone. They had wired the full amount to Lucas's company 3 days after I had fronted him the money. When I confronted him, he had an answer. His business partner had used the funds to pay other creditors. It was an internal mess. He'd have my money by Friday. Friday came and went. No money. No Lucas. He stopped answering my calls. I drove to the apartment he had given me. The landlord told me no one named Lucas Chen had ever been a tenant there. That's when I started digging. The sober living house? No record of him. The hotel job? Never heard of him. The small marketing firm that supposedly hired him? It existed, but they had never employed a Lucas Chen. I called his therapist. The number was real, but she had never treated anyone named Lucas Chen. She did recall a man matching his description attending one session, paying in cash, and asking for documentation of treatment. She had refused. Everything had been a lie. Every document, every update, every piece of his recovery. All of it. A performance constructed to manipulate me back into his life. I froze all joint accounts and called my lawyer. That's when we discovered the real scope of the con. The tech startup contract Lucas had shown me was altered. The client had been paying installments all along. Lucas had created fake invoices to hide that he was collecting the full amounts. He had stolen over $90,000 from our partnership. But that wasn't the worst part. He had used his access to my project files to gather information. Contact lists, strategic plans, proprietary processes. 2 days later, 3 of my largest clients received emails from what looked like my account. The emails contained confidential information, trade secrets, and unflattering internal comments I had made in private team meetings. He made it look like I was running a disorganized, unprofessional operation. The damage was immediate. 2 clients terminated their contracts. Lucas had hacked my email system, collected ammunition, and detonated the bomb. But he still wasn't done. I came home one evening to find my apartment door unlocked. I knew why he'd asked so many questions about where I lived, why he'd smiled so warmly when I had foolishly invited him over to celebrate. My laptop was gone. My backup hard drives were gone. The file cabinet with my contracts was empty. Even my grandmother's jewelry was missing. He had robbed me, not just digitally but physically. The police were blunt. Men like Lucas are professionals. By the time you realize what's happened, they're gone. My lawyer filed a lawsuit, but you can't sue someone you can't find. Lucas Chen had disappeared. The phone, the email, the social media, all gone. I wondered if that was even his real name. The next 2 weeks were the darkest of my life. My intellectual property was now in a competitor's hands. 3 more clients left. I had to let go of 6 employees. I had to tell everyone what happened. My staff, my clients, my vendors. Each conversation was a fresh humiliation. I could see the question in their eyes. How could you be so stupid? Lisa stopped by with wine. She didn't say, "I told you so," which somehow felt worse. She just sat with me while I cried. The worst part wasn't the money. It was the violation. Lucas had studied me. He identified exactly what I needed to hear, what evidence I needed to see. The apology, the recovery story, the gratitude, all calculated. He hadn't changed. He'd just gotten better at the con. I had been so invested in the narrative of redemption, so desperate to be the person who believed in second chances, that I had ignored my own instincts. He had weaponized my compassion. My accountant laid out the full damage. Between the stolen funds, lost clients, severance, and legal fees, I was out nearly $200,000. The detective assigned to my case said con artists like Lucas target successful, lonely professionals. People who want to believe in second chances because it makes them feel like good people. I wasn't his first victim, and I wouldn't be his last. 4 months later, they found him. He was in Portland, running the same con under the name David Chang. But this time his mark got suspicious earlier. When they arrested him, they found driver's licenses in 7 different names. His real name was Michael Morrison. He had victims in 6 states. I testified at his trial. Seeing him in an orange jumpsuit, he looked smaller. He didn't look at me. I told the judge about both betrayals, the calculation, the loss. When it was his turn, he apologized. He had a gambling problem. He never meant to hurt anyone. It was the same performance, right down to the tremor in his voice. The judge wasn't impressed. 18 months, full restitution, 3 years probation. As they let him out, he finally looked at me. I saw it. Not remorse. Calculation. He was already planning his next con. It's been a year since the trial. My business is stable now. Not what it was, but healthy. I have 8 employees, good clients, and systems that protect me. I'm more cautious. Lisa says I've become harder, less open. Maybe she's right. But I understand now that compassion doesn't require making yourself vulnerable to those who have already hurt you. That forgiveness doesn't mean restored access. I learned that some people don't deserve second chances because they're not interested in change. They're just interested in another opportunity. I gave the wrong person a second chance, and they nearly destroyed everything. But I survived. My business survived, and I'm stronger now, wiser, and more careful. Some doors once closed should stay locked. Not because you're unforgiving, but because you finally learned that protecting yourself isn't the same as being closed off. It's just being smart.